AI in recruiting truck drivers. What's good? What's bad? What are fleets getting right? And what are fleets getting completely wrong? Do drivers want anything to do with it? Will it completely change the recruiting process? And what do drivers actually think? Because drivers are already interacting with AI in other parts of their lives. In our research, 42% of drivers said they immediately scroll past Google's AI overview results, but 35% said they read at least some of the AI-generated response before moving on. And another 18% said they stay in AI mode and continue engaging with it. So whether people realize it or not, drivers are already building habits around AI-driven experiences. But what does that mean for recruiting? Does AI make the process faster and easier? Does it make it feel less personal? Are there certain parts of recruiting where drivers are perfectly comfortable with automation and other parts where they still strongly prefer human interaction? And beyond that, what does good AI even look like in recruiting? Is it communication, scheduling, information gathering, something else entirely? We looked into it, not just the technology, but the bigger shift happening around communication, expectations, and the recruiting experience overall. So let's get into it.
All right, welcome back to Digging Deeper, everybody. Live edition. The chat is open. We have kind of changed, for everyone new, we've kind of changed how we do this. We used to kind of pre-record them, and then we would have our little, we'd talk, you'd have a pre-recorded conversation between the three of us, and then there'd be room for questions at the end. And then the questions were all 100% anonymous. I'd be looking at them. And we've decided to do these more live and engaging. So 100% live now. And then we keep the live chat open for you guys the entire time. So feel free to put in your opinions. If you think something I say is wrong, or Aaron or Kyle, feel free to boo or hiss or tell us where we think we're wrong. We just want to be as engaging and have a conversation here as much as possible. And the topic today really is somewhat in its infancy of how much are truck drivers using AI? How do they feel about AI within the recruiting process? Should we be investing in GIO? Where does AI fit? Should it be more of an outbound thing? Should it be more of an inbound thing? We're going to talk about all of it. You guys have the power to direct the conversation. Feel free to say anything you want. Also, throughout the time, we will be running some polls, some live polls, so that feel free to participate those, please, so that we can see how the entire audience is feeling and thinking. And then one last thing, a lot of what we are talking about, you can see I have it printed out. We are talking about this little piece of research that we just put out, which talks about, which we surveyed drivers and asked them how they felt about AI so that we weren't just guessing. And we will post a link to that throughout. I think Josh off stage over here, he's my, if you're a Joe Rogan fan, he's my Jamie. Hey, Jamie. He will put the link up from time to time. We probably won't keep it up the entire time just because it kind of, it's not so bad. Maybe we can just keep it up the whole time. But feel free to go to that landing page and download the new thing. It looks like we already have someone in the chat. Oh, somebody asked, how do I know this isn't AI? Well, if it is, they really did a good job of modeling me and training me, because this is me.
Clone you.
Yeah. How else could be someone? How else could AI be so inarticulate? Someone just said, "Hi, Aaron. Aaron is real."
Yes, I am real.
All right, and Kyle's real too. All right, let's get going. I'm going to go ahead and launch my first poll here. It's going to say, let's see here. I think the first thing we want to talk about here, I'm going to launch this, and then I'm going to add it to the stage just for a second so everybody sees it. Let the vote get going for a second, and I'll take it off.
I like this, by the way.
What?
It's the first time I've actually got.
You've been able to see all this?
Oh, wow.
Oh, good. We're getting better. It's season 4 or 5. All right, we got our first vote. It says yes, probably more like half. I'm going to remove this from stage because Jamie over here / Josh told me that if he tries to clip things and this is on stage the whole time, it makes it hard for him. But everybody, please keep voting. We'll keep looking at it. How much do you think drivers are using AI? Is it a big part of their life? Is it just something like there's a small group of power users? What do you guys think? And then I will say what I think the data is saying, because it's not like there's a little bit of nuance there. But go ahead, start with you, Kyle. What do you think?
Before, the research came out, which I want to brag on the marketing team here again. The last research they put out was fantastic. This one is equally as insightful. Just to get this type of intelligence from so many drivers was really, really informative. But prior to having the cheat sheet that you've got there, I would not have thought or guessed that truck drivers engaged with AI very much at all. Like, I mean, I would have said it would have been maybe low single digits, even in 2026.
I'll tell you the thing. Should I cross my arms? I'll tell you the thing that surprised me the most, and I'd like to hear what the audience thinks about this. Is we said this in the little opening monologue there, but I was surprised that 42% of drivers say they immediately scroll past the AI generated results in Google, because I have found those so helpful.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily go straight into AI mode, but I'm always going to at least check those out. Did that surprise you that 42% scroll past that?
Yeah. I didn't think that. I just, for whatever reason, I mean, my gut's been wrong plenty of times. I just thought that when I saw that stat, I almost felt like that was low, because I'm like you, I'll expand the AI, but then I'm probably going to keep going. And I don't know if that's just humans' habit of searching, and that AI blurb at the top is starting to interrupt that. We'll probably be trained a little differently, but for me, when I search for something, I'm just naturally going to go review different web results as opposed to trusting that handy little paragraph at the top.
Did anything stand out to you as far as usage from drivers?
This is the part that's stats drive me crazy.
I know they do.
And
As a
you got to dissect them a little bit. Yeah. Well, I mean, I love analytics. That's true. But the first thing I thought when I saw it was 58% do read it.
Right.
Am I doing that right? 42 don't.
42 immediately scroll past.
So I just thought, well, there's more than half that are actually.
Yeah, they most at least look at it.
Now, I will say, I feel like I'm pretty tech savvy or forward thinking. And even yesterday, talking to one of our sales reps, don't think so. You guys can debunk.
Let's hear from the audience. Is Aaron tech savvy?
Is Aaron a techie?
What I mean by that is, I'm always looking for new innovative things. I love Google, so people give me hell. I feel like Google is much more robust than some of the Apple products, but I digress. That being said, I was meeting with one of the sales reps yesterday, and I still forget to use it. But a client was asking for some help on one of their advertising pieces, and I'm leaning over the sales rep's shoulder, and he's just kind of showing me what he pulled up in our data, and he copy and pastes the ad out of their career page, maybe it was Indeed, I don't remember, and just typed in, "Is this competitive?"
Right.
And then it spit out all kinds of really good information. Anyway, my point is, I feel like I'm pretty good and I use it a lot, and I still forget to do that. So it doesn't surprise me that we're so early on that sometimes you have to be like, oh yeah, I should probably go check and see what
I guess
Gemini says.
Especially with because I think it, and Kyle, I want to hear your thoughts. I feel like in the future, being able to show up within AI results, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but that function of how people search and find things will become huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the newer frontier in search results.
Yeah.
If you think back years and years ago, there weren't even paid ads at the top. Then those got dropped in. It was all about the 10 results that appeared there, and then it was initially just 3 kind of paid results at the top, and then it expanded to 4, and then they put some at the bottom. So it's all about ultimately revenue, but then Google's claim is they're all about the user experience.
Yeah.
So what are they seeing? What's the data that they could potentially be seeing in these AI generated results where users are having a better experience continuing on, as opposed to having to go to 3 or 4 different sites and review them to try to find my product or information. And so, and I know Google's moving pretty quickly to advance those AI results with a lot of their, with what they're sort of engineering in the results going forward. So the tradition of what we've been used to in Google results yes, it's changing now, but it's going to get even more AI influenced and populated as we go.
Well, and I asked that question just because it's like you said, 58% look at it. I guess I'm surprised looking at it. It's so immediately evident there at the top. I'm surprised that many would say they immediately scroll past it. Like it's almost like
you can't miss it.
Well, and
my thought is though that every 6 months that's going to go down 5%.
Yo, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about this data is I feel like this AI data, it's good right now, but it is going to age a bit like
quickly.
Yeah, it's going to age quickly.
Good point.
47% say they've never used an AI tool. 53% then, have used at least one, but like only about 10% would qualify as power users. Now, I will say, just to add a little context, one thing I think you always got to keep in mind is that the median age of truck driver skews about, 6 to 10 years older than just the median age of the workforce.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
So it's always like it's going to lag behind a little bit.
Yeah.
What are some of the best ways? Well, do you guys have any final? I want to kind of move through all this. There's a lot to look at. So
Yeah.
do
you want to hit the chat?
Let's look at. Sorry.
Well, okay.
Good call, Aaron. So Zach Miller says, I still think it's interesting. I got one right here. I don't know why I'm
the number of drivers.
I still think it's interesting the number of drivers that have said they have just never even heard of these major AI platforms. So what he must have already downloaded the research. So what he is referring to, I should have been a little better.
Well, it's the one like where, I think it's the bar graph where like hardly any of them heard of Grok.
Yeah,
which, I mean, that's
that's the one I'm looking for here.
Like ChatGPT was kind of the king.
Anybody have that pulled up?
Good Lord.
Oh my goodness. This is a disaster.
I remember my first digging deeper.
I know, for real. What on earth? Anyway, it was, if you guys have it pulled up, it was basically, there was a large percentage of people that had never even, there we go. Let's see, 35% say they would never use ChatGPT. 29% had never heard of ChatGPT. 34% had never heard of Gemini, which is strange because it's right there. 65% had never heard of Grok, and 68% had never heard of Claude. So that is a bit. I actually, that part doesn't surprise me as much. I would say that's about what I would have thought, especially if they're scrolling past Google or AI results in Google. I will say Chris Sevenish says, is there any research of drivers using Siri or mobile voice assistants, since most of those use AI now? It'd be interesting to compare use of those versus aerial suits. That's a good point.
What is AI? It's in almost everything.
Yeah, and so that's one thing we're going to get to, and we're kind of transition to right here, is that there's like the reported use of AI, and I think people think of AI specifically in generative search engines like Claude and ChatGPT, and they stay away from those and they're skeptical of them. But that doesn't mean that AI isn't they're interacting with AI in ways that they don't realize, which is kind of the crux of this thing of like AI should be, not to give away the punchline so early, AI should be a huge component of how you do recruiting, and it's going to increase, but how you apply it is very important. And we're going to kind of get to that. I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll and ask the audience, if AI a big part of your recruiting?
And while folks are answering that, something I want us to, if you've been in the industry long enough, you may remember what recruiting truck drivers was like before there were digital solutions to help you recruit truck drivers. Well, then the internet came along, right? So you have no internet, then the internet. Then it was no mobile. Now every driver has a smartphone. I think we're in this next step of the evolution of technology in the industry where, there's some usage of AI already. And I think that happened faster than smartphones being adopted, faster than drivers moving online. I think we're going to see an even accelerated use of AI within recruiting, within trucking, and then also by drivers who are looking for jobs.
Well, let's go ahead and throw this to Aaron, because I want Aaron, and if you want to kick it over to Kyle, that's fine. The first question I want to ask is, Aaron, what are the ways that you're seeing fleets use AI effectively and maybe ineffectively, just different ways that they're using it? And then I'm going to kick it over to Kyle and say, what are the ways that Randall Reilly specifically has been using AI to help driver recruiting. So you may find some ways that we're using AI that you aren't really participating in. And so I want everybody to know that. I will say, Julie West says, AI, I thought it said all. AI lives inside most search engines, so they are using it regardless if they realize it or not, which is kind of the crux of what we're going to get to here. And before you answer, Aaron, I am going to check in on most people think, so 42% of our audience thinks that yes, probably more like half of drivers are using AI tools. 35% think only a small percentage of drivers are. So those are your biggest. There are a few people that think most drivers are, and there are a few that think the vast majority of drivers are not. So interesting. All right. How have you seen fleets? Because you've probably talked to more fleets than anybody on this in this panel or on the call. How are you seeing fleets use AI right now in recruiting?
I'm going to miss some, I'm sure. But creative, I've already seen that in some cases where they're taking advantage of some AI to help with photos and or video.
Yeah.
Orientation follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Once somebody is scheduled, just kind of those additional daily touch points on, next steps, whether it's rental car or whatnot.
Right.
Which I think is pretty impressive. I've seen some load planning AI programs, and then some fleet optimization tools I've definitely seen some of that where it's a program that's just analyzing fuel consumption and route planning and all that. So, I mean, those are going to continue to grow. And then the big one, I guess, that we're taking advantage of is the inbound phone call. So
right.
Answering calls, nights, weekends, transfers, rollover.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Those are the ones I'm pretty sure there's a couple more I missed, but
well, what of those have you been kind of the most impressed with, or have you seen kind of people be the most excited about or get the most results from?
I don't know if I can answer that on some of them. I don't know. I would love to get into some of their processes and understand the load planning and the fleet optimization stuff. I'm sure there's some good stuff. I just haven't gotten in that as much.
Mm-hmm.
But even the small, like to me, this is the thing that AI is going to help with. It's just the small, difficult or busy work. I hate to say busy work. They're important tasks, but it's just
not complicated.
Gnats flying around your head all day long kind of thing. So even the follow-up after orientation, that's a lot that you can just re-engage with the driver and, keep them communicating, but not tying up your recruiting staff or whatnot. And then obviously the phone call piece.
Yeah.
That's the absolute huge one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't get in it too much because we want to save it for the punchline at the end a little bit. But Kyle, kind of talk about, because I think we and you've mentioned we're using AI to field inbound phone calls and capture a lot of what fleets traditionally would just miss and go out into the ether, never to be seen again. But that's not the only way in which we're using AI. So can you kind of talk about the Stratus agent system, but also just other ways in which we're currently using AI?
Yeah, I mean, the big one is, all the inbound phone calls that are being answered otherwise wouldn't be. So that's a driver that's just going to keep calling somebody until they talk to a human, and just creating a wonderful experience for the driver there, get that converted to a lead. So we love that. I think probably the way that AI has helped our business the most, and in talking with some other fleets, they're starting to do this in recruiting, it's the data analysis. So there's so many numbers, there's so many budgets and ratios and all of that floating around, and it's unique by different providers and vendors and everything under the sun. And simply being able to take a spreadsheet or a Google sheet and a simple question with ChatGPT or Gemini, and to get some analysis right back really quick, that time saving has been really, really helpful. I've seen a lot of fleets and recruiting departments doing that, speeding up decision making. And that's just been really interesting to see. It's making some complicated things happen a lot faster. That's not to say you should just give every Excel sheet to AI. You still need to check it.
Right.
But getting some of those themes or ideas and things out of it has been really interesting to see that used that way too.
So I was talking to Clyde this morning, who
Clyde, not Claude, not to be confused with the AI, like
No.
Claude.
Our
AI
guy
system.
Clyde,
Okay, on
who
our
is
team,
as
Claude.
good as Claude.
He may actually be
Uh,
powering.
But hey, I mean, this was just this morning. We were talking about a couple gaps in process when you're looking at onboarding or new campaign setup, landing page creation, and he was talking about the tools that they're using now, where that it will scan the page and say, "Hey, give me recommendations on how this could be better," and then we can use that on how the page looks, but then also go back to the client and say, "Hey, here's 2 or 3 things in your messaging that." We would like to improve, and then ask if we, get approval to change it.
Yeah, I wrote a note down of how you mentioned creative, and then I put building communications. I mean, once upon a time, you had to have an English degree to do a whole bunch of, copy A, B, C, D, E testing to see what works.
Yep.
Well, now you can write it onence and say, give me some other versions that say the same thing, proof those other versions, and all of a sudden I'm able to get a lot more messaging into market as opposed to what I think is right. And I can learn a lot more to be better, faster. And, our team's doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do want to look back at one of these polls real quick. We asked, is AI a big part of your recruiting now? We got 38% at it's becoming a big part. We got 23% at we are using AI, but not a lot. Mm-hmm. And then this is surprising me. 38% say we aren't really using AI at all in their recruiting process.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I still think a lot of people are interested, and maybe that's why so many are on here, is they're just trying to figure out what makes the most sense.
And then I was going to say, you mentioned fleets kind of using it to come up with ads and then create videos and things like that. I will say it's kind of like I think this also falls in that realm of if they know it's AI, they're distrustful of it, but there's so much stuff they probably don't even realize is AI. But when asked how they feel about AI videos, 53% said, I hate AI videos and immediately skipped them. And 23% said, I don't mind them as long as they're not noticeable. And then 50% said, I don't use these platforms for videos. So,
by the way, I think it's funny when someone says, I don't mind it as long as I don't notice it. That means you didn't notice it.
Yeah, it's an odd thing.
So it's about a 50-50.
And then I will say we had some, just actual verbatim quotes from drivers. And I wanted to one said, I watch the Terminator movies, so I don't trust any AI at all. So
scared of the future. Yeah, scared of the future.
We got our buddy question for Aaron.
Addressing you directly.
Chris Palin says, Gemini says the Florida Gators have a strong chance to make the CWS this year. And given their number 8 national seed, it seems believable. Should I save you a seat here in Omaha? P.S. Don't rule out Huskers. Gemini says they have a realistic shot.
Call me. I may be able to make that work out.
He said, take it offline. Thanks, Chris. Now, because I try to keep these to about 30 minutes, but if we go over, you guys have lots of questions. Fine, we'll keep going. But one thing I want to talk about is we talked about kind of some of the best uses, and I want you guys to be able to watch. You guys, not you guys, but you guys, I got to find where the camera is. You guys, I want you to be able to have some answers. If you're, sometimes you get into some sort of board meeting or C-suite meeting, and they're like, what are we doing with AI? What should we be doing?
Yep.
All right. And so we have some takeaways. They're inside of this piece of research that you guys download so that you have it, but I want to kind of unfold them a little bit. The first thing is that, like we said, I think GIO, I'm going to go ahead and we'll talk about it for just a brief moment because I'm definitely not an expert in it. I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll and add it to the stage real quick. This may be something that comes up. People are saying, are you investing in GIO? Which, if you're wondering what that is, you could also call it GEO. There's like 25 different acronyms for it, but essentially it's are you showing up in what is generated by an AI search engine? It's the counterpart to SEO. Everybody knows SEO, search engine optimization. This is basically AI optimization. And I'm surprised that we already see 100% say yes, but I don't know how many votes that is yet. So we'll see how this.
There we go. Now
yeah, there we go. What I would say it shows so far with 42% immediately scrolling past it. And then you got another pretty good majority that kind of will scan it, is that it is coming. It is coming. And I would say sooner rather than later,
Yes.
that you need to have a good plan for what you're doing with GIO. But however, I would not say that we are there yet. It's not, you're not ready for this huge, like, start educating yourself, start understanding what you need to do, because it's complex. The way search engine optimization can be a little complex, of like, there's just the part of, are you actually, is your site structure correct in architecture? But then there's the whole side of just, are you producing the right content? And, I do wonder how everybody using AI to generate content, and then how is that going to affect what AI pulls in as results? So there's a whole mess to get into, and start educating yourself. And you guys can say if I'm wrong, but I feel like we're not quite to the point where GIO is going to play a huge factor in generating hires for fleets yet. It will, but not yet. Agree or disagree?
I completely agree. We still have to get to more AI adoption and search for all that to matter. There is a mountain of content that has to be created, and then created by publishers like us, or our clients that are watching, but then also curated by someone like Google to ingest it and formulate that into those AI results that are coming. It's going to happen at some point. But I think people who took note of what we just had up there, and they start utilizing that with what they're producing, they're gonna yield fruit sooner than people that may try to adopt it later. I mean, that is the new age of search engine optimization. So highly recommend you to look into it if you're producing any type of content.
Let's get to the audience chat. Very good, Kyle. Sorry. Have you seen applicants not complete an application if the application or creative seems too IE, which is weird, but
I haven't seen that.
I haven't either. I guess that'd be a hard
it.
thing, but that is a very good question that we should probably.
They probably would just skip the ad.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's hard to. It'd be a hard thing, but it's something we probably should look into. Like, that would be something you could actually kind of
A/B test.
A/B test sort of thing.
It's not really an A/B test.
No, that one could actually be, well,
ish.
What A/B tests are a bit of a sore spot with me. Shannon Zink says trucks with motive cameras with AI coach is allowing our drivers to experience with AI.
That's a great point. And I did not add that one. Very good one.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, very good.
And then Ashley Ross says the drivers still struggle with simple computer tasks like clearinghouse or online orientation. It's frustrating to see them so far behind on tools that are already moving them and will continue to more. That is very true. Yes. Well, and like we said, it's an older demographic.
Right. But AI could eventually kind of help bridge that gap.
Right.
Where it could be more conversational to get the information out of that older driver.
It will.
Yeah.
To get it into the clearinghouse. So I think, to Aaron's point, somebody was mentioned earlier, if there's sort of these really important tasks that are lower on the skill, like copying and pasting something or getting information from point A to point B, AI can help facilitate that.
Yeah. I can't read her name. Is it Abby? What was her name?
Ashley.
Ashley. Okay.
I assume I said that right. It's ASHLEI.
Right there. Here's my thought. And this is, so the iPhone was created in 2007 or 8?
Somewhere in there.
7, I think. 2007.
Yeah.
We at Randall Reilly still sold print job magazines till 12 or 13 or 14, which is crazy to me that you had all that job search opportunity available to you on an iPhone and then Android afterwards. For another 5, 6, 7 years, we were still selling print ads.
I wouldn't say it was much later than that.
Maybe it was.
I started in 12 and we had print ads at least another 7 years.
My point is, she's right that it is frustrating. It'll come, but in this market, they're just going to be slower than, maybe nursing or some other field. But I did have one other thing.
Yep.
You guys are talking about the spending money to show up in the the generative search results,
not spending money
or
necessarily,
just investing, I guess.
Investing. So it'd be like SEO versus SEM.
Yeah.
There's no option yet really to spend money to show up.
No, I'm sorry, you're right. But
Yeah.
when I think investment, what was the poll question?
It's are you investing in GIO?
Yeah.
That's what so investing. Maybe that's not
Yeah,
monetarily, but I apologize. But I wrote down, because I do think we're looking at it from the recruiting perspective, and our data says hardly anybody's looking for jobs.
Yes.
Now they may be using it for other things, but not jobs. So,
Right.
But from a sales perspective, the other side of the fleet's business, I just wrote down, who is the best safety score and on-time delivery for flatbed coils out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama?
Right.
I guarantee you some people are looking and typing that in.
Yeah.
And you definitely want your fleet to show up. So
yes, that's a good point.
there is a difference between the job search piece, which
Yes.
we're going to be behind on.
Yep. That is
Not we as Randall Reilly, but we as
Industry.
an industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hope everybody picked that up. That good clip. Clip that, Jamie. That's a very good point of like, we were very specific in talking about investing in GIO from the sake of job search, but you're right in that other people are definitely probably figuring out stuff about your fleet through the use of AI generated results. So Robin Wright asked, what is recommended to help pique our drivers' interest in AI? I think it's a tricky question there. And I think this is where we're going to kind of plan ourselves for the rest of the time, is that I don't think, and you guys feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the motivation is necessarily to get them interested in AI. It's to demonstrate the convenience of a tool, is to understand your life is easier if we use this thing or use this thing. And it's almost unnoticeable that AI is in the background of it. It's not AI for the sake of AI. It's AI for the sake of convenience and getting the results that you want. So the example would be, I mean, this is a self-serving example, but I'm going to do it anyway, is if a driver calls in, he could leave a voicemail, he's probably not going to give all the information that you need. You're not going to have a lead inside of your ATS. All you're going to show is a missed call, and you have no idea if this was really that much of a qualified driver. And he's going to feel like he didn't get much information.
I'd say you probably didn't get any information.
Yeah.
Probably none.
Right.
Probably zero information. Using specifically our AI Stratus agent that can field that inbound call. Take the fact that it's AI out of it. The driver gets to give his information. He knows the recruiter has a way to have a scheduled callback with him. He knows when the best time to call him is. He's been able to ask and get information about that job. And you've captured that driver when his intent is at his highest. So this is a bit, sorry, I'm going to get on a soapbox for a little bit, just for a second, if you guys will allow me. So I think there is 100% a use case for what we would call like an outbound call agent. And I'm not discouraging people from using that. And what we've seen anecdotally, just from me talking to, a lot of our account representatives and account managers, is that you have a lot of people asking about either saying, well, I'm already using AI calling, and they mean outbound calling. We're loading a list into this and it makes calls and then does some sort of warm transfer. Or when we talk about what Stratus Agent does, they say, hey, there is like, what about the outbound piece? We're really interested in that. There's definitely a piece for that, but that's not necessarily reaching drivers when their intent is at their highest. You are probably missing more calls than you realize. The driver had an intent to find out information about you. He is interested in working for you. And like that intent is just pure gold in the world of recruiting. And now there's an AI tool that gets you what you need to be more effective at recruiting and gets the driver what he needs to feel like his intent didn't go to waste, and he's going to immediately move on to the next driver. So whether you use Stratus Agent or not, and I hope all of you are, obviously, that is such a gold mine for people in recruiting to be able to capture that intent now in a way that is measurable and inside of your ATS. I mean, we have a this is getting a little long. We have
a big soapbox.
There's a real big soapbox. We have a couple of case studies inside of here where essentially people added, over the course of 90 days or 75 days, I'm not sure, hired 58 additional drivers just from being able to capture that high intent moment when a driver calls you. So if we're talking about like ways to pique drivers' interest in AI, I think the answer is make their lives easier. Whatever makes their life easier and makes your life easier is the real key. And I'll get off my soapbox. Sorry for everybody that stuck around for that. That was my little soapbox.
I have an example though.
Go ahead.
I have a client that
I got room for two on this soapbox.
Almost 50% of their inbound calls are just simple questions.
Yeah.
Oof.
And they're working on a small team. And so making outbound calls to the full applications, scheduling for orientation is their priority. The inbound calls sometimes become an annoyance.
Right.
I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just they can only do so much. And again, 50%, we monitor the calls and record them. So 50% of the calls were just simple questions. Do you hire out of Mississippi? How much experience is required? Do you offer anything local? And the call agent handles all of that. Like it just takes so much of that off their plate and then answers the questions and then turns that into a candidate in the system. But anyway, I don't want that to get missed either, that it will free up the recruiting time to do more recruiting. It's a big piece.
Did either of you want to take the question is why does Stratus not make outbound calls?
You kind of touched on it. We went after the opportunity of inbound because of that dramatic increase or difference in intent. If the driver's calling you, they're interested in your fleet. If a voice agent is doing an outbound to a lead that you haven't been able to get in touch with for 4 months, which one of those calls has a higher likelihood of leading to a hire sooner? And so that's why we went after inbound first. We wanted to say we kind of looked around and said, this is where we want to plant our flag first, make the biggest impact. To Aaron's point, we're doing that every single day, and it's been really impressive to see. But that's not the end all be all, and they're exactly right. That's coming later, probably in 2026-ish.
Oh, Vilma, don't believe that.
At some point.
And I will say
where we do want to have a system that can engage with those leads on an outbound, put the ball on the tee, do a warm transfer into a recruiter in the middle of the day.
They're all feeling pressure.
That's right. That's right.
And I will say that we currently already had an outbound strategy.
That's right.
That is really not much different than what people are calling like AI calling. It's just like load a list and make a warm transfer. We can do that.
Yeah, that's been around for like
it's like you said, really the biggest, and I think these case studies go to show the biggest opportunity for a lot of fleets is regaining time for their recruiters by A, capturing intent when it happens, and B, being able to redirect calls that are not what they should be spending their time on.
That's right.
So it was just the biggest, the answer is it's just the biggest opportunity.
Well, I will say too, I mean, it is coming, you guys. I realize it's extremely important. We want to be very good at what we do. So part of that is, how do you send the text first with a specific message to the driver, followed up by the phone call that also speaks specifics to the driver, not just a robot.
Yeah.
Vilma also says we use it and we like it. So I assume she means Stratus agent. So thank you for the thumbs up. And then I will say, so real quick, I will say when we talk about drivers and their skepticism of AI, we've been running Stratus Agent now for, what is it?
9 months. This is our
October.
9 months.
So 9 months.
Totally.
And these stats are from October until April. In October, we had 2,200 calls.
No.
That's what
2,200 calls?
Yeah.
Not like 22,000.
No, the first month.
Oh,
first
sorry.
month.
Oh, sorry. I
First
thought you were
month.
talking about recently. I was like,
First month. 2,200 calls in April.
Yeah,
we were just testing it out early.
October, right. Into last year.
We had 16,000 just in April that we fielded.
Right.
the average call duration didn't drop.
Right.
So the average
That
call
was
duration
what blew my mind.
The average call duration was still around 2 minutes. So I guess with all that to say, and despite the voice skepticism by drivers, when AI specifically is done well and it's helping them accomplish a task that they want to accomplish, it seems like they're using it in droves.
That's right. I mean, and I think one of the big fat claims in putting all that data together for you guys, we noticed it was over 90 consecutive days of talk time since Stratus Agent went live that it has engaged with drivers. So think about 3 months, 24 hours a day for over 90 days. The agent has been sitting there helping all these recruiting teams. So that just proves adoption.
So I'm gonna do a quick summary, and then you guys can both have like one final sentence because we're going long. And if you guys have any questions, we will get to it. So if you want to throw a question in the chat, or if you're bashful and want to use the Q&A panel, I'll field that too. So the biggest things is, yes, drivers are skeptical of it, mainly because I think it skews an older demographic. But it is interesting to see even like 18% of drivers over 62 still report using AI a little bit. So adoption is happening, and it's probably going to exponentially increase. But we're not to the point where drivers are going into ChatGPT and doing job search heavily yet. It's probably happening to a small group of power users. So we're not quite to the point of having a huge investment in things like GIO or whatever acronym that we're going to fall on for that. So I wouldn't be real concerned about that yet, other than just understanding it and getting educated on it. The biggest opportunity is there's a lot outside of recruiting that Aaron mentioned. So if that's not in your purview, maybe it might help to talk about it. Just you can help your fellow employees with it. The biggest opportunity, I think, in the world of job search is just making your current recruiting team more efficient. And I think there's no better example of that than what happens with your phone calls. There's obviously the outbound piece that is a big component. But we currently think the biggest component is just capturing drivers that have high intent through inbound fielding of phone calls, and just being able to screen calls away that are not what, if they're just asking simple questions, or maybe they're not even looking for the recruiting department, just making your recruiters that much more efficient. And then obviously being able to capture all of that inside of your ATS is huge. So if you're asked, in a board meeting, like, what are we doing with AI? I think there's and we're doing this too through Stratus, of like optimizing campaign messaging, using the Stratus Assistant to look at market intelligence and say, hey, how competitive is this market? Well, what and that helps with bids and things like that, and then just the making your recruiters more efficient. I think those are kind of your biggest points that should be used in recruiting, is like optimizing your creative. You can use AI to look at kind of the buckets of where your phone calls are falling in, to see like where you're missing stuff, and then just making those high intent calls much more, I guess, advantageous for your recruiting team. Yeah. Would you guys add anything to that, or was it perfect?
No, I think you nailed it. I think we all know it's coming. It's just a matter of where can it be implemented? How can you utilize it? Trying some things. The reason ChatGPT exploded was because you could just chat with it.
Right.
You can just type a question and get an answer and say, okay, that's not really what I was looking for, and type some more.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage people to try, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, probably the two safest and easiest. I think Grok's good if you really care about that, but Claude, that's really good if you're a developer. So yeah. I think probably ChatGPT and Gemini are great places to start. Then just have some chat conversations, give it a problem that you're looking at, give it a spreadsheet or something like that, and just see how fast it can speed up some things that may be a little mundane for you right now. Training wheels, in other words.
Anything you would add?
I'd like the opportunity to talk to anybody that has questions or would like to look at some options, because I think we're seeing some really good stuff. And the data I'm looking at right now, we're answering about 600 calls a day, every single day.
Yep.
So we have a very large number of data points regarding the inbound calls and the questions that are being asked, the answers that are being given. But anyway, I think there's a ton of data there, and then also room for some efficiency. We can help.
And I would add, there's 35% of our audience right now is not using AI at all for their recruiting. I would say unequivocally that you guys, there are some real opportunities that if you took advantage of, you're easily leaving a couple hires a month on the table by not using some of the new tools available. So I would just add that at the end. I appreciate everybody. This whole video, this whole live format with everything will be on YouTube tomorrow. It'll also be on the website. Don't forget to download. You got the click here for drivers and AI report. Don't forget to download that. I hope today was helpful for you. I hope you guys got a lot. Chris Palent says, see you in Omaha. And we got a couple thank yous. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for showing up. And we will see you next time on Digging Deeper.